Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our final segment of the day here on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. And for our final segment of the day, we're going to conclude with a Stardom Sit-em segment, some fantasy advice, if you will, for tonight's two games. And this one certainly feels like an easy one because in Titans-Dolphins, it certainly seems like the game flow is going to go as expected in terms of what you might expect out of a Miami Dolphins offense missing its star quarterback, and in terms of the Titans as well. But for the Seahawks-Lions, a lot of intriguing storylines there. Without further ado, let's conclude this show in great fashion with some Stardom Sit-em advice for you. And the first start is pretty obvious. I feel like this guy, I'm kind of coming around to this season just because he was forced into a bigger role in this offense, not necessarily because I think that he's going to be a superstar marquee name in the running back market in fantasy football. But Devon Achane, I feel like, in this offense, they need someone like a Tyler Huntley to kind of supplement the run game. You know what I mean? I feel like, with Tua back there, you're kind of asking a lot of the running back in order to get you chunk yardage or make some explosive plays down the field. And so, with Tyler Huntley in there, I'm kind of intrigued to see how Mike McDaniel utilizes a guy like Devon Achane now, because he's now your biggest offensive weapon. Sorry to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle owners, but it's just the truth. I feel like in a dual threat system, you have more option plays available to you. You have more defenses trying to load the box, trying to stop the run for you, opening up avenues for both Huntley and Achane. And so it just seems like Achane, no matter who is going to be their quarterback, is going to be someone who, no matter what, is going to be an X factor. And he saw 74% of the offensive snaps in that game against Seattle, even though he had a down game there. So look for him to be a definite start for tonight's game. And then a definite sit for tonight's game. Yeah, I said he was going to throw for over 190 yards, but I didn't say in what kind of manner. I didn't say if he would throw 3 interceptions, okay? Will Levis, yet to score 16 fantasy points in a game at the QB position. That's almost impossible, in my opinion, as a quarterback. You have so many opportunities as a fantasy player, especially at the quarterback position, to put up points, and you can't consistently do it and can't consistently exceed 16 fantasy points. That's kind of a desperate, dire strait if you're a Will Levis guy, or someone who expects a lot out of Will Levis, because I don't expect a lot out of him right now. And so it's kind of weird considering the fact that he has so many weapons who could help him in terms of, getting yards after the catch and things of that nature. But as long as Will Levis, continues to believe that his arm is going to take him far in this offense, then I can't see anyone justifying starting him in any capacity, whether it's a 2 QB league, a deep league, or anything of the sort, even a dynasty league for that matter. So he's a definite sit for tonight's game. Now here's where things get interesting, because the Seahawks-Lions game is rife with talent and rife with interesting decisions, especially at some skill positions. It's not as obvious and clear-cut as, say, sitting Will Levis, but these are my honest opinions about who I think warrants a start or maybe warrants a benching for that game. A start, DK Metcalf. We talked very positively about him in the last segment. Very consistent this season with 100-yard games week in, week out. And it's kind of funny to say that he's the guy in the Seattle offense who is the X factor because, like I said, Kenneth Walker still holds a lot of weight in that offense as kind of the tone setter. And when you think about the wide receiver room, there is a lot of depth there and experience with JSN and Lockett. But DK, the reason why he's becoming one of the premier fantasy wide receivers is because nobody really knows how Seattle's going to call a game. Ryan Grubb is one of those OCs, a new OC, especially at the NFL level, collegiate level with the University of Washington last year and throughout his career. Don't remember that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he balances having a solid running back with a guy like DK Metcalf. Because either DK Metcalf can have that one big play, like I said, the past couple of games that he's had, or he's going to kind of pick at their defense and find holes in it to open up more avenues for this offense. And that's what I love about the mystery of Seattle's offense. Not even I as a Seattle fan can say what a particular Seattle game script will look like for any given opponent, no matter how tough or how easy they feel like in terms of their schedule strength. So DK Metcalf certainly is one to look out for Seattle going forward as a receiver, and as most importantly someone who is a game changer at the wide receiver position. Then to sit, this one kind of feels obvious as well, mainly because we don't know how he'll look in this game, but Kenneth Walker. I think that Lions, the run D opponent, they're going to immediately try and stifle the run to, get Aiden Hutchinson going in the rushing game for their pass rush, especially. And opposing running backs have only averaged about 14 PPR fantasy points per game against the Lions front. And K9, I think that he'll be an excellent fantasy running back, but this game certainly feels like a weird game for him to come back in this situation. It feels like Seattle has a lot of pieces missing, even though it's on the defensive side of the ball. And, it's still a very weak offensive line. So I feel like what Ryan Grubb's going to do is continue to pass the football, try and get the ball out of Geno's hand as quickly as possible, and then try and find spaces where perhaps Kenneth Walker can exploit the Lions front. But for now, I don't necessarily see how Kenneth Walker is going to impact this game as much as people expect. Then, in terms of the Lions, a lot of interesting ways you can go right here. A lot of interesting ways. And seeing as to how, the Lions as well are a very mysterious offense, at least for the first 3 games of the season, I think that this game certainly feels like one where you'll start to see more of this offense open up and try and take advantage of a depleted Seattle defense. So I'm going to say start Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm starting him tonight in my personal fantasy team. He is one player who's going to be a constant in my fantasy squad no matter what. Because even through the first couple of weeks of the season, even as this offense has struggled to get the passing and going, he has been someone who you just can't deny. He is still that all-pro receiver that he was last year, and he's still someone who was one of the more difficult wide receiver ones to defend in the league. Yes, a lot of people might be concerned about the emergence of Jameson Williams in this offense, but it certainly feels like the way they see him right now, Jameson Williams, is as someone who, if the offense needs that energy, that boost, Jameson Williams can be that guy. He's not someone who's going to consistently see a lot of targets, I think. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, if this is finally the game where the Lions get right and get more out of the passing game, this feels like the game. Yes, I did say in that prop bet segment that he's going to have under 7.5 receptions, but his receptions mean more than other fantasy wide receivers, if you've noticed. They mean more in terms of getting the necessary yardage for chunk plays. They mean more in the red zone. They mean more for the opportunities of other Lions players as well. So while Amon-Ra certainly is one of those guys you have to be patient with, his big games, whether they be quiet or loud, can pay dividends for you. And so that's why I think he's a definite start for tonight's game. And I'm confident he'll put up good points. I don't know if he's going to win me my fantasy game because the other guy has Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's certainly someone who I'm not necessarily too worried about as the season goes forward. And the final sit of tonight's game and the final kind of talking point about this segment and this show for today, Sam Laporta. As much as I want to love Sam Laporta, as much as I respect him for what he did last year as the tight end one, even being the worst tight end one season of any fantasy tight end over the past decade or so. Sam Laporta is injured. That's the kind of crux of the thing. He is still injured. We don't necessarily know how effective he's going to look. And judging by what I've seen of the Lions offense, he certainly is kind of getting lower and lower in the pecking order of players on this team who they feel can make an impact. And so, seeing as to how, I feel like this game is going to play out, he can certainly have an impact, but it's all about A, his health, and B, most importantly, Ben Johnson's play calling. He could be a low-end tight end 1, but I feel like for now, Laporta is a big risk at your tight end position. And not for nothing, like I said, the tight end market is very volatile. You're going to find more guys who can impact your team positively. It's not just all about guys like Laporta, guys like Kelsey, guys like Kittle and Andrews. It's going to be about the Trey McBrides of the world, the TJ Hawkinsons of the world when he gets healthy, the Dallas Goederts of the world. So I'm not necessarily too concerned about Sam Laporta. I'm just more interested in the tight end market and, most importantly, what the Lions offense feels like it's comfortable doing, if that makes sense. But let me know what you think in the comments, because that will just about do it for today's edition of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you, as always, by the GSMC Sports Network. I've been Christopher Shepard. Thank you all for tuning in. Reminder, like, follow, and subscribe to the show if you do feel so inclined, in the network as well. It is greatly appreciated by all concerned. Also, continue doing a great job of making yourselves available to the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. They're a great way to interact with the show. Ishan Patel today, taking advantage of that as well. Appreciate your comments, Ishan, if you're still watching. But all those who did not comment today and feel like they want to, tomorrow is a great opportunity as well to make the show even better. But we will be back tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, as always, for another great edition of this show. But other than that, thank you all for watching. I'm out.